되게 야와. 유럽 지대 초배 초조카 단단대라 냠슈난게 저 연나대라 샵자라 페로나 대민창마 투지세 다다리 샹니 슈고야 내주 차송 그셔서 나라 쇼네 비기야 샹이스네 되도아 우리 차마 비기네 람게 가라 마슈로나 추페로나 대추 예유라 슈라 헬로 티베트 티베트 헬로 헬로 부반 남라 차로나 Quando adesso slogan Tibet libero, alzate braccio. Tibet libero! Tibet libero! Pegelo! Pegelo! Tibet! Secondo Shuin. 토마 공사겸구 첨부 경호 탐지 캠바 댄지 가조라 구정원도 다외 원에 토네 다들 내려야 저거 칩교 나와 야네 비게 공의 재미가 토네 패바 저쪽의 총신 공을 내가 좀 치려다 아니 수스 구잡 전적에 아니 공을 칠레 추지라 다나 셴바 구루지드 유럽 구루지드 고토데 갸조 대시 이탈리게 저조 고게 투미다 아니 구드 랭게 참말라 참데 뜻이 될레쇼다 찹책 달랭게 시계 체외 왕들 통고르게 제고디 우주셔 쉐이 대나 송자 네 측지쇼자 Europe stands with Tibet. We are now celebrating the 64th anniversary of Tibetan National Uprising Day against the Chinese occupation of Tibet. Noi stiamo per iniziare il programma dell'Europa sta con il Tibet per commemorare il 64esimo anno dell'insurrezione popolare tibetana contro il regime cinese. All'inizio avremo l'inno nazionale tibetano. Inno nazionale. 아니 단다 겔루데 우주슈드 미만서 숭게 토베 도네마 겔루 따나로나 사마 구샤나로나 야, 저 받아서 가요. 야, 고추. 그걸 좋아해. che de Italy la teve pubblicitare ne maranzo per risure kanji thone ane koranso nyamnyo sani gelu lonzin shuto wadi manzo ngone popa chimbu ngani shuayin tuji ches shuayin tuji che pamazol. Okay, please sit down, all guests. Now we dedicate 1 minute of offering our homage to our Tibetan martyrs. Kamachik ringa nganzu pe chinani ge geje paodang pame chedu ane dongsem nyamje ge gudu dang nyange shue ane kamachik ringa tsama ya shane nyange che kamachik gozu yin. Thank you. Tuji Chena, guests are requested to take your seats. Thank you. Ora, I ask Tibetan Community President Tgsl to address a welcome speech.
Tgsl, buongiorno a tutti, finalmente è arrivato il giorno per alzare e gridare per il Tibet libero. Tibet! Tibet! Peggy Tagbo! Peggy Tagbo! Sepshu Macha! Sepshu Macha! Peggy Tagbo! Peggy Tagbo! Sepshu Macha! Sepshu Macha! Longsho! 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 Loto! 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 Peggy Tagbo! Peggy Tagbo! Long life! Long life! Long life! Long life! Stop killing! Stop killing! Stop killing! Stop genocide! Stop genocide! Stop genocide! Tibet! 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 Peggy Tagbo! Peggy Tagbo! Longsho! 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 Sepshu Macha! Sepshu Macha! Loto! 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 Chiare Mucce! Chiare Mucce! Tgsl, vi ringrazio tutti che siete qua, uniti qua abbiamo trovato un posto magnifico, importante di Roma, siamo capitale, finalmente il sole sorge per il Tibet e che continui a sorgere per il Tibet e spero che i vari autoritari del mondo si alzi veramente per il Tibet, che si smuova la coscienza, è ora per alzare, per difendere, per aiutare, per il popolo schiacciati dal regime e dai potenti. Non è giusto ancora, 64 anni ancora siamo qua a chiedere amici di Sua Santità Dalai Lama, 1 milione e miliardi di persone seguono Sua Santità Dalai Lama, se siete amici allora dovete assolutamente sostenere la causa del Tibet! Pregalo! 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 토제난 미마의 유럽 부르단계 장막 대표와 토제난 가딘체 에모토니 샘쇼 마저러나 에모토니 내가 수수루고다 타다 수구창마 배마에 뼈고체니 먼저 결혼 무책 시가시니 꾸지 결혼 중 안줄라 내가 탑시 지러나 내가 쿠토니까 먼저 배워 용감매네 간주 라는 메시지다 ngapjunga dol hastare thande monjunde jane lega yene lega dinde ke chau mare susu lungba miri ke chambure kadine pa masharona sonjo tunjo kadine perona kuchire kya ushui kuching hanzo pikyaore mi chekatingi tujena dinde perona semshu macharona juai pegalos perché ho detto alle comunità del Tibet, dell'Europa di non perdere la speranza. 156 persone si sono bruciate, ma noi non dobbiamo perdere, dobbiamo fare in modo che sollevare la coscienza di tutto il mondo. No, basta, 64 anni sono troppi anni di silenzio, dobbiamo lottare per conquistare, stiamo chiedendo l'autonomia, non stiamo chiedendo l'indipendenza, perché in realtà il Tibet è sempre stato indipendente, è stato sempre uno stato, è stato dominato dal regime cinese e basta adesso, noi non stiamo chiedendo l'indipendenza, stiamo chiedendo autonomia, quindi chiedo a tutto il mondo, al leader di onestamente di sostenere la causa tibetana, quindi wake up, please, grazie, Tochenan, Pegalo.
Grazie Tseten, la presidentessa della comunità tibetana. Now I request our Deputy Speaker, Madam Tgsl, Jamatsringla, Tanda Sungshe, Kecheshe de Ganjo Sadam Salani Del, Kungi Zeme Giton Pevere, Jozo Gotoshe, Ko Jamatsringla, and the Tingjaka Peronas.
Trindaga Italy जैसा यूरोप की इटली जैसा लिया यूरोप बगी न्याम तो ये सिंगे की एनिलिंग शिवो ने यूरोप की एनि जेकब सांमलो ने पूरी चितु क्वाली योसा सांमे भूमि सोतेले न्याम तो जो मिरी की सुमचु तुचे केलां छेबे की टुचु देफी तेले या न्याम 좀 종고 तेला थोमा 얘기 그미만 지들 현조 기탑수 제제 그나리야 랑기 루소 롱체 버기 체도 르단 난겐기 바오 남기 체도 그들 수예당 다가나 신된다 나를 신베기 그나리야 아니 부리 근데 용조리야 아니 지난주기 동행기 냠동안 조랑왕리 유배 비미소 유 세제들인 티네마 수예기 되가 주종성 통화들이야 Tene ta tirin tel ya ma ke che she koye ti sambuling ki ke khab yong le ya bög ne tu na zo khare ko ge yu thanda bög ne tu khare de ti she ku du sa ne enge ki ti che le ya in ji thol she chob chi she che ka tu shue yin Today we are here to commemorate the 64th anniversary of Tibetan People's National Uprising Day, the bloody uprising that massacred 1.2 million Tibetans, that is the 20% of Tibetan population. And the Communist Chinese planted 6,000 monasteries in Tibet. They first came with broad smile, with the name of liberation. In 1949, they entered Tibet, saying that they are going to help and elevate Tibetans. But in the long run, when they have finished making and building all the strategic plans to execute the bloody day of targeting the Potala of His Holiness, then the Tibetan people could not resist and we revolted against. This is also a day to commemorate how Chinese People's Republic of China leadership fooled the Tibetan people of their innocence and of their goodwill towards humanity. They came with a broad smile and slowly, they first, in 1951, the 17-point agreement was forced to sign. When the 17-point agreement was signed, there were so many points that they themselves violated. I'm going to tell to the world that China, they first will come with a broad smile of help. And the next step they do is, they will propose something. The same thing was done to the Tibetans. When that proposal is not listened to, then they will intimidate and they will dictate to you. So therefore, there is a lesson for the world to learn from the case study of Tibet. In the 17-point agreement, there are so many clauses which they have agreed upon. Though this 17-point agreement was signed on duress through intimidation by making the false stem of Tibetan sovereign state, yet they themselves violated those clauses. The clause number 3 says, Tibetan people will have rights to exercise national regional autonomy under unified CCP. Clause 4 says, the central authority will not alter the existing political system of Tibet and will not alter the established status of Dalai Lama. And number 7 says, the religious beliefs and customs and habits of Tibetans shall be respected and the Lama monasteries will be protected. And the last one is, whatever reform is being made, the reforms will be made according to the will and wishes of the Tibetan people. Now, where are these promises? I'm asking from here to the CCP leadership, where are the promises you have made in 17-point program? You have violated what you have imposed on us, and yet you have no shame to celebrate the 17-point agreement, saying that we have liberated Tibetans from the serfdom. Tibetans were religious people, they were simple and humble people, but they were intimidated. And this is the agreement which made Tibet a vessel of Chinese. Now sometimes we forget the importance of this 17-point program also. This is also a program or an agreement which agrees that prior to signing of this agreement, Tibet was a free and sovereign state. Therefore, there is a lesson for the world to learn. Now, China says all is fine in Tibet. China says the Tibetans are basking in the sunshine of socialism. If Tibetans are happy and basking in the sunshine of socialism, why are our people burning themselves? We have 158 Tibetan people burning themselves, and one of the biggest self-immolation in the history of mankind. This 158 is not a number. This is human soul and spirit. They have burned themselves for the cause of Tibet, because this is the only desperate solution they have to show to the world that all is not well in Tibet. Whatever China wants to sell to the Tibet, to the world, that Tibet has been liberated and developed, the self-immolation of our people contradicts the false claims of Tibet. World should understand this. If all is well in Tibet, why is Tibet closed and cut off from the rest of the world? Why is UN Human Rights Commissioner not allowed to visit Tibet? We want answer from the leadership of CCP. Now, China has rules and regulations. They have basic laws to show to the world that we are law-abiding nations. But when it comes to Tibet, every rules and regulations are being diluted with local directives. These local directives give very high hand to the local Chinese personnel to intrude into the private lives of Tibet. And these rules and the local directives give permission to the local authorities to punish all the Tibetans who go to show their condolence to the self-immolators' families, and they make it a crime to even donate to the deceased person's prayers, which is a basic culture of humanity. When someone passes away, someone dies, we show our sympathy and solidarity to that family. But this is a crime in Tibet. Tibetans cannot show sympathy and condolence to the families. Not only that, even the township has been punished if there is a self-immolation in the township. For 3 years, the government funds are being cut off. This is the state of affairs in Tibet. So, what is well in China now? Therefore, we demand the leadership of China to take accountability of all the self-immolators. Let us know why they have self-immolated. They should take the accountability. Now, second thing, China is an atheist. They believe religion is a poison for the progress of community. They say that those who are religious, they are barbaric and they are backward. Let us be backward. We don't mind being backward. But whatever success story the China owns them, whatever is a failure, they have no hesitation giving it to the Dalai Lama. Possessing a photo of His Holiness is crime in Tibet. And whenever possible, the leadership of China, they demonize and they vilify His Holiness. But they are busy making a rule and regulation to grab the institution of Dalai Lama. What a hypocrisy is this? Does this mean that China has come closer to Buddhism? Has their love for Buddhism increased? No. A big no. They want the institution of Dalai Lama for their political end. By making a rule to grab the institution of Dalai Lama, the leadership of China has come to the conclusion that they cannot rule over Tibet and Tibetans forever without having the legitimacy of His Holiness. Therefore, they want this institution of Dalai Lama to break the resistance of Tibet and to get a semblance of legitimacy. Therefore, those who have religious beliefs and practices, we want you to take stand on this. This is an undeclared intent of China to grab the institution. We want the world to know that this is unacceptable to the Tibetans, and each and everyone who have conscience in their body should make their sovereign government and the parliaments to take stand on this. Now, Tibetan people, every move and every speech is being monitored by surveillance. Tibet has become a surveillance state. Within families also, they cannot talk their heart. Within friends also, they cannot speak their mind because they are being monitored with biometric, with DNA mapping. Each one of them, they are being made so suffocated in Tibet. That's why we say that Tibet is the biggest prison in the world, where the Tibetans have no freedom of speech. Anything that is about loving Tibet and loving and celebrating the culture and song and the history of Tibet is a crime in Tibet. So, we want the support of the world. Even the minors are not exempted from taking DNA. So I say that taking birth in Tibet has become a crime for the Tibetans. We want you to help us spread this. And not only that, according to Xi Jinping's second generation ethnic policy, each and every national linguistics and the religion will be melted in the pot of Han supremacy. They want everything, be it Muslims, be it Christians, be it Buddhists. They want everything to have the characteristics of Chinese, which means that they will be melted, they will be made subservient of the Han supremacy. As part of this, nearly 1 million young Tibetan children are being uprooted from their homes, and they are sent into the colonial boarding schools. What is the need of the Chinese to take care of the learning of the Tibetan children? Why are they not let in their homes to be brought up by their parents with their own way of bringing up of the Tibetan culture? No, they want to indoctrinate. They want all the youngsters of Tibetan children to become Han Chinese in thinking, in deed, in speech, which will really kill our struggle from inside Tibet. Therefore, this is a very pressing issue. We want the UNO and EU to pass resolutions on Tibet that our Tibetan children should have the liberty to learn in their own language, to be brought up by their own parents in their natural setting, making them into a real Tibetan. we want UN and the EU to send delegation to inspect such colonial institutions where children are having psychological, physical and sexual abuses also. Therefore, these are very pressing issues. Being a Tibetan, we are proud of being a Tibetan, and we have no ill will against the Chinese common people. Our cry is towards the leadership of the Chinese who have the wrong policies that makes desperation to our people to self-immolate. Another thing that I want to draw your attention is that the world is talking about global warming and environmental challenges of humanity. When the world is talking about global warming and environmental challenges, it will not be complete if you don't give importance to the Tibet Plateau. What China is doing, the environmental destruction, indiscriminate mining, diversion of natural water into China, building of numerous dams in the earthquake-prone zone. These are some of the concerns that should be addressed at the same time. Therefore, we urge the United Nations that the United Nations environmental framework on climate must have a research team recruited to see what is the importance of the Tibet Plateau and how the Tibet Plateau impacts the global warming and the environmental challenges. So therefore, I want the world to know that China is trying to take away the Tibet conflict into an internal matter of China. The conflict between China and Tibet is not internal matter. We should make this into an international matter, and the world should understand that Tibet is an international matter. And second thing, the world sovereign state must engage with the Central Tibetan administration and the Tibetan Parliament in exile, because we are the voice of Tibetans inside Tibet. By engaging with us, you are giving recognition of our sufferings in Tibet. We want China to take accountability of custodial death, in arbitrary detentions. Even at this time, a number of political prisoners who come out, they do not survive outside. All their inner organs are being either taken away or are they being dismantled so that they are left to die when they come outside. So, according to the international norms and regulations, we want the UN to make China accountable for such kind of injustice to the Tibetans. If it's a Tibetan who loves environment of Tibet, if it's a Tibetan who loves to sing the glory of Tibet civilization, it's a crime. The number of environmentalists, the writers, the language activists, the teachers, they are being subjected to prison on the pretext of sharing national security to outside world. So, being a Tibetan is such a crime in Tibet. So if you feel that Tibet still matters, if you feel that the culture and the heritage that we have still matters for the world peace, you must support Tibet. Before Lunar Losar, the New Year celebration, I had the most surprising and the most, I should say, hypocrisy of that 2022 year. I heard one of the Chinese top diplomats talking to the world about world peace, dialogue, and multilateralism. When China is talking about world peace, dialogue, and multilateralism at the international level, China must know that it should be the benchmark even to the Tibetans, to the Uyghurs, to the Hong Kongs, and to the Taiwanese crisis with China. They cannot have a different benchmark to the international media and for the other nationalities they are controlling. So we must make China accountable to practice what they preach at the international platform. Last but not the least, I want to say that supporting Tibet is not against China. Supporting Tibet is the support for the truth, non-violence, and the compassion that Tibet is known for. So supporting Tibet doesn't mean that you are against China. Therefore, for us as a Tibetan, China is breaking the fundamentals of Tibet by targeting the religion and the language of Tibet, which is the bedrock of our civilization. Therefore, Tibet is in need of the world's support. If you feel that world needs non-violence, world needs peace, world needs truth to prevail on earth, you must support the cause of Tibet. The cause of Tibet is not humanitarian. It's survival of these rich cultures of Tibet, which is enshrined in the Buddhism, which is enshrined our way of life, which we try to spread to the world. Therefore, for all our Tibetan brothers and sisters, we should not be satisfied by shouting for one day and by hoisting Tibetan flag for one day. Our cause is 24/7 throughout the year. Therefore, I want to conclude. I remember by saying that Robert Frost has a very famous poem, and this morning I was going through and I remembered that Robert Frost, in his famous poem, Stopping by Woods on a Snowy Wind Evening, says, "The woods are lonely, lovely, dark and deep, but I have promises to keep. And miles to go before I sleep, and miles to go before I sleep. No matter how much happy you are in a citizenship of European country or any country, you have the work to do to be the voice of Tibetans inside Tibet who have no voice." So, with this, I'm going to stop my talk, and if the world acknowledges the truth will prevail. So, I hope the truth prevails on the earth. Tgsl. And for your kind information, this is a proof of Tibetan sovereignty. This is a proof for the world how the treasury head of Tibetan government in Tibet in 1948 traveled throughout the world, even Italy, where I am now. You have accepted the passport of Tibet, where there was no sign of China. This is a proof.
thank you very much for Tgsl. Your speech has covered all kinds and types of the problems we faced by the Tibetans in Tibet, and we extend our heartfelt gratitude for your speech. Thank you very much. It was illuminating. Now I request on the dais, Madam Tgsl, representative of His Holiness the Dalai Lama in the office of Geneva, Switzerland, to channel. I request now the following to speak very shortly because we don't have a time. We have been starting very lately. Sorry for that.
Toma Delia, Teri, Sumchu Tete, Teng, Chukchu Repshibegi, Zego, Europe, Pedanyamdo Yubegi, Legu Chemudilia, Chikyu Gangbe, Pemima, Chidil Henzogi, Chokshu, Kungo, Tomasilla Chodang, Taganeshingi, Kuruchutu, Europe, Kuruchutu, Kungo, Tgsl, Europe, Yongne, Peri Chokbagi, Chokcho, Chokshu, Gule Namba, Taganeshingi, Europe, Yongne, Pemilenge, Han Leba Mangu Pesha, Delia, Narang Germene, Jesu Iranda, Toji Cheshuang. Nanju Medinalia, Mixegi, Lochignalia, Nimachigdi, Tende, Susu Peba Imbadi, Temba Sugudula, Taganeshingi, Pemi, Shembatuli, Chensolangudu, Di Indugalia, number 2 Terinde, Kule Hajan Chembu, Chumni, Peyore, Taganeshingi, number 2 Nangmejo Imbine, Tende Tiotigi, Injiminji. Rome la job ugutuelani yimbine tunju kamedelia simsum machani number 2 delia pesha di tende gana sunglare penang la yobe pemichulare dale ke cheshu chigre samgudu kyar to number 2 lia thochi cheshu ai tagana shingi taringi legu chemedi koji shuadi Italy peri sopa chadegi yore Hakbar to Italy Nalia, Pemi, Yungu Chigre, Galhax Madu Yomade, Dinalie, Chokcho Chokshu, Gule Ube, Mi Sumadu Yomare, Koran to Nambegi, Taga Rabuchikule Guni, Taringi Legudi, Han Leba Yapuchik, Tatsubuchik, Goji Nangsha, Tende, Italy, Pemi, Ya, Sangmelo, Dinalia, Yamshudna Yore, Delia, Toji Cheshuang. Today, as we remember the martyrs, the Tibetans who have sacrificed their lives on 10th March 1959 in the streets of Lhasa, we commemorate them as we stand here, as Europe stands here with Tibet. To this very important event, I would like to thank our Deputy Speaker, Madam Tgsl, our parliamentarian from Europe, Tgsl, our parliamentarian from French Senate, Ms. Else Joseph, the Tibet support groups, the Tibetan community leaders, the Europeans assembled here, and most importantly, the Tibetans assembled here from across Europe. As you stand here today, your message is not just to the Europeans. Your message is not just to the international community. Most importantly, your message is to our brothers and sisters in Tibet who are continuing to suffer under the Chinese regime. There are 3 important things to remember. First, what is happening in Tibet? Since 1959, what we have seen is systematic
persecution of Tibetans, systematic destruction of Tibetan identity, culture, religion, and now the entire Tibetan civilization is at the stake. And therefore, the second question, why should it matter to you? It should matter to you firstly because Tibet is one of the oldest civilizations in the history of the world. And most importantly, human rights violations that are happening in Tibet is not just happening within the borders of Tibet. It is spreading across the borders. It is coming to your doorstep because your phones, your cameras, your privacy is being invaded because you are supporting Tibetans, because you are standing up for human rights of the Tibetans. And your governments are being forced to negotiate with the Chinese government. Your day-to-day life is being impacted, and tomorrow it is not just the Tibetans who will suffer. The oppression spreading through the transnational oppression by the Chinese regime will come to your doorstep very soon, and therefore it should matter to you. In that case, how can you support? The question is, how can you support? Firstly, your very presence here today is a very strong message of support for Tibetans. That you stand for justice, that you stand for human rights. Secondly, pick up that phone, open that laptop, connect to your parliamentarians, connect to your government officials, ask them what is the parliament doing, what is your government doing for the persecution which is happening against Tibetans in Tibet. A very simple act. Your one voice can make changes in the lives of Tibetans in Tibet. What the governments can do, firstly, initiate engagements with the Tibetan government in exile, initiate engagements with the Tibetan communities across Europe, across the world. Secondly, press China to hold genuine peaceful dialogues with envoys of His Holiness the Dalai Lama and the Tibetan government in exile. And of course, when it comes to the multilateral institutions and international platforms, they should call upon China to not just have the human rights written in the books, but also guarantee and protect them and implement them. These are the things, I'm just enumerating a few here, that you can do as a responsible citizen of the world. With that, may I once again thank all of you, each and every one of you, for your presence here. As I said, your standing here for Tibet sends a very strong message of inspiration, courage for Tibetans who are suffering under the Chinese regime. And as His Holiness has often said, never give up. Never give up, no matter what is happening around you. Never give up. Because if you give up, it is not just one person's life that is at stake. It is the entire Tibetan world at stake. And we also believe that we are human beings and should be granted all the human rights as any other human being. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Madam Tgsl, representative of His Holiness the Dalai Lama. Thank you for your speech. And now I will request all, I'm obliged to request all to be very, very short, because I will not able to grant, space for every speakers and other representations of cultural songs, etc. Thank you very much. Please be short. The slogan. 디제라 원조 농쇼 다야이 메마우즈 깨베 챔버토나 농쇼 다로지 당고 깨베지 경그래 디제라 농쇼 다야이 讲话定是家做，讲话定是家做。